started going down in 64, 65. This is my grandma who first took me down. I think it's either the Bolton playoff game or the Middlesbrough one. I can't remember now.
I'm wanting, I think, to somehow keep that, get back to those memories and just keep that part of childhood, I guess, in one level.
Can't remember what the first game was at all, but I know Notts won. And in fact, Notts won most of the games I went to for quite a while, which was, I was regarded as a good luck charm.
First time I came to watch Notts County, I would have been about 6 or 7. He's been able to stand close to the pitch as well and to almost be able to touch the players. And I just love the atmosphere down here.
It's a time when football was a sport. It's become a bit of a business now, but it's a different time. I think it means so much to so many people in this city.
I don't know what it was about walking down Meadow Lane. It just seemed a bit earthy and it just seemed a bit more gritty going that way than Bridgeford way. And then I remember going in, and then you got a transfer. I think it cost sixpence to get into the Meadow Lane stand, big, vast wooden structure. And then when we got in, sat there is about 6 or 7 or 8 ladies the same age as my grandma. And I've worked out my grandma was 67, I think, when she first took me down. And a couple of them had still got their husbands were still alive, and there were bags of sweets being passed around and stuff like that. And I just thought, yeah, this is the place for me.
Went to my first match in January 1959. My dad took me. He also took me across the river, but didn't like that. I don't know why, I just didn't like it. The following year, I was only 11, started attending here regularly, 59-60 promotion season, which I think helps when you're first starting out, doesn't it? And after that, there was just no looking back.
I met my husband, who was a Notts fan, but we were actually going to gigs quite a lot, and he'd pick me up from Victoria bus station, the very depressing, dark, dank Victoria bus station. And after a few times of doing this and going to gigs, I basically said, this is silly, why don't I come to the match? I like football. And we used to stand on the halfway line, roughly, at the division in what is now the Jimmy Cyril stand, in front of the few seats that there were behind us at the time. And that's where the love affair started with this club.
All the authorities just sort of painted us all in the same sort of picture. We'd had this sort of the Bradford fire disaster, we'd had the Heysel disasters, we'd had rioting from England fans during the '88 sort of European Championships. And I think at the times at that period it described football as the slum sport played in slum stadiums followed by slum supporters.
Football was, the stadiums were outdated, and it didn't there wasn't a good cross-section of people there. There weren't many women going to football matches. Football had basically lost its way.
First time I saw a copy of the pie was in Select Disc in town, on Market Street. Jim Cooke, who used to run it. I picked up a copy there. Well, this is interesting. I mean, I'd come across fanzines before as part of the punk rock movement.
Music and football were intertwined in a massive way for me, and I think probably it's fair to say around the fanzine culture that was fairly common. So as I worked at Select Disc, the record shop in the centre of town, and that was very much around kind of obsession with music. So to work there, you had to know a lot about music. I don't remember it having so much as a test, but clearly you had to, convince Jim, who ran it, that you knew enough about music for it to be a kind of specialist shop you were working in. And there were people in the shop who were really knowledgeable about different kind of genres, and that was quite well coordinated, I think. And when fanzines came in, it was very much like the kind of post-punk DIY culture around that seem to intersect with the football fanzine culture as well. It's very kind of grassroots, DIY, perhaps even kind of activist kind of mentality.
Selected Disc is a kind of Nottingham institution, and I've never really seen a place like it. And when I bump into people today, everybody says that to me. I've never seen a shop like it in its time. With me being able to kind of point the shop in the direction I wanted it to go, when I got involved in the fanzine movement, or slightly before we actually made the pie, I'd started stocking football fanzines in the shop. And when I was a customer at the shop in the 70s, there used to be a football fanzine called Foul, which was a kind of the forerunner to When Saturday Comes and Off the Ball. That when I saw those, that took me back to Foul, and I thought, brilliant, I can get involved in this, because this is going to show the main media and Thatcher what football fans are really about.
I first bought a copy when it just started. I don't think it was probably the first one, but one of the early ones. And I was so taken by it because it was what I was all about. It was all about knots. It was all about real ale as well, which is my other passion. I liked the style, I liked the humour, the irreverence of it, and it just appealed to me.
So I think on that initial first pie is basically down to myself and Chris Curtis and Andy Martin and Colin Higgins. So, but then from that, as we then brought out subsequent editions, we met like-minded people who gravitated towards us, and we kind of, this kind of network mushroomed out from that. And it became a kind of a focal point, I suppose, for people with not alternative ideas, but people who didn't really like the mainstream. They just wanted kind of things that were a bit more left to centre, and that was the viewpoint that we were kind of coming from ourselves.
Well, I was rocking and rolling all the way down to Meadow Lane. I was rocking and rolling, I was really right up for the game. As the crowd, they started to rumble, noise was screaming out of the tunnel. The timer came on, and this is what it said. Stand up and be counted, you magpie. Stand up and be counted, you magpies. Stand up and be counted.
When I first met Colin Higgins, so I didn't know anything about him, but he'd been to St Martin's Art College, had a bit of a business doing wedding photographs, but then he'd taken up lecturing at Burton Art College. One of his pupils on his course was actually Shane Meadows. I think that's how kind of Shane got involved with following Notts County, was really through Colin.
Yeah, what about Queen Anne match? County Saturday, Stockport. Be alright, that will?
Oh, don't know, Dad.
Jesus, what's that? Where's my mug?
Sorry, love. I broke your Notts County mug.
You broke 15 years I'd had that. Second Division Championship. Jimmy Cyril had drank out of that.
Well, why don't you try the Penguins? They're Notts County, aren't they?
How many times? It's not penguins, it's magpies.
Yeah, Colin was very instrumental in the look of the pie. With his artwork was fantastic, and once he got into a role, it was a way. He used to ask us to come up with kind of themes that he could work around, jokey things that he could then make into a cover.
It was a big tradition with the pie to always make sure that we sort of sponsored players that were up and coming in the youth team and gave them some recognition, gave them some kit money, things like that. So there was always that sort of thing about it. They also did quizzes. They did quizzes on the buses. They also ran independent buses, which involved going to the pub with the famous Ivor Thirst usually recommending where we would stop. So there was quite a lot of that sort of relationship with the club, reciprocal relationships there. My claim to fame is when we eventually did get invited to a meeting and shown the plans for the ground, I said, what is now the Jimmy Cyril looked a bit plain. And although I realised we couldn't keep the old triangle, why could we not duplicate the triangle just in a sheet of metal? And there it is.
What can you say about Neil Warnock when he came to Notts? Obviously, really a spot of bother. We were sort of going down the tables, we were looking like we could be in a relegation fight.
That guy, took us from Div 3 back in the day to Div 1, 2 successive Wembley playoff successive. And I remember being behind, we used to be able to go behind Warnock's dugout in the first half and then over to behind the goal for the second half. You could walk around the ground. And we would have some drinks and then stand behind Warnock, and the level of entertainment, it was like, just because he was your manager, it was hilarious. If he hadn't been your manager, it would have been awful.
But it was just his manner, really. He sort of lifted the club, and you could see straight away from when he was on the bench just how involved he wanted to be, and just he's passionate about his football and he's passionate about trying to get results.
Taking us up all those leagues, consecutive promotions and Wembley experiences, something that when I was only a couple of years younger than when Neil was here, myself and my then boyfriend, Tony, decided that we were going to go to see Mansfield at Wembley because there's no chance we were going to ever get there with Notts. And then all of a sudden we were there twice.
As a Notts fan, I never expected to go to Wembley. It's not something we did. And so to go there 5 times, firstly under Warnock and then under Colin Murphy, was just so unexpected. And the playoff wins particularly were very, very memorable.
We went down on a pie coach, and we stopped out at Stanmore. We offloaded there, and there was a pub close by. We were selling beer for about £1, £2 a pint at that time. And there is a photo of us somewhere where the tables are just covered with empty beer glasses, and then we just caught the tube in, and it was just walking down Wembley Way. He'd seen it all as a kid, and he'd watched the FA Cup finals on TV, and it was just brilliant to be part of it, to actually get to play at Wembley and see the team we loved play there as well.
My dad had passed away in January '93, and I decided to move from West Bridgeford back up to Edwalton to get nearer to my mum. With Selected-Disc at the time, it was a peak period of Britpop, and the shop in London and Nottingham were booming, and it was just taking up so much of my time. I realised I couldn't give all that effort into the pie. I'd got other things to do. With Cliff Smith was a big part of it, and Ken Swift, who's sadly no longer with us. And then Steve Westby stepped in big time then and kind of took things over.
And Neil McGowan contacted me and said, well, do you fancy having a go at running it? Never done anything like that in my life before. And so the pair of us took it over as co-editors, right up until virtually the end.
It's important for me because it was for the fans, by the fans. It gave the fans a voice, which I felt was important. I mean, some of the things we had in the pie, for example, there was this thing we called Glory Days, where we focused on a previous match that was well remembered. And people would say, oh, we've put something in the pie, right, next it's going to be this game. If you have any memories about this. And people would be coming up to us saying, oh yes, I was there with making notes and all this, and that's how it happened, yeah.
There were so many voices, so many different kinds of experiences around football, but there was a real sense, I think, of a way of thinking about this game, which is nothing to do with what the players are thinking about, or the owners are thinking about, or the managers are thinking about, which is all that stuff around a narrative and an identity. And the Cumming captured that. Now, of course, we have podcasts, social media, and I genuinely think when you listen to your team's podcast, which is often fans talking to each other about what's going on, that's the legacy of those fanzines now in the current kind of media space. And of course now we have social media, and On a Saturday, I'll be on X, as it's now called, and I'll be having exchanges with people who are here as well, but I don't necessarily know them. And it's a similar kind of language. It's like that dark humour. You're half commenting on the real thing, which is what this team is doing on the pitch, and you're half kind of ascribing meanings and referencing other things and having this kind of conversation, which is very knowing between people who all get the same kind of thing, but also realise how crazy and irrational the whole thing is. Now, I think that's what the space Fanzine's created has gone on to generate longer term.
To me, the pie was a great achievement. I thought it was always an enjoyable read, and we kept going longer than most fanzines. But for me, the credit must go to the guys who originally started it. They had the flair, the initiative, the drive to put it together and come up with the style that it was always in, that was so appealing to the ordinary fan.
But then over the years, I've kind of added on my favourite players. So you've got Don Masson and Les Brad and Mark Draper and people like that, Neil Bishop. I mean, I still play football to this day, and every time I step out onto the pitch, I still think I'm Don Masson. I know I'm not, but I've still got that in my head, that I want to play football how the Don played. Pass a ball like Don, play it with backspin, drop it exactly where it's got to be for the guy who's running on, or just slow the ball down and look for somebody. Football played in the proper manner. You can see that it's all getting a bit wonky here because my mum was putting these on towards the end of her life, so her fingers weren't as nimble. And my wife, bless her, has just done a scarf with the players on for this season and last season to replicate what we've done there.
Magpie scarves we wave all around. Notts is the team, Meadow Lane is the ground. They're the lads who can make you shout. County's the team for me. Oh, County, Notts County. County's the name, football's the game. County, Notts County. County's the team for me. Our magpies, they are the lads. They cannot never win. We'll support you ever.